How's it? This is Mark Heil, and today I want to talk about if-then statements in Microsoft Excel. This is one of the first equations that I'm going to be teaching you guys to do, and it's one of my favorites because basically you get to say if something is this, then apply this value. For example, if you win the Super Bowl, if you win the Super Bowl, then you are the best team in the world in football. If you win the NBA MVP, then you're the greatest basketball player in that current year. If you ace your SAT, then you are a genius. In this scenario, we're going to say if you get a certain grade, then you pass. That's the example we're going to be showing today. So open up Microsoft Excel. First of all, make sure in the bottom left-hand corner, make sure in the bottom left-hand corner you change your views, so it's this view, page view, and go up to 200% so you can actually see things a little bit better and save your eyes. Okay, I already have some of this data typed out, so go ahead and type this out. Now when you type out the negative sign here or a dash, now that's part of an equation. It automatically recognizes it as an equation, so if you hit dash and enter, it might leave it, it might not. Okay, if it does something like this, then what you need to do is put the apostrophe first and then a minus sign or dash, because then it says, okay, you really are a number, value or a label instead of an equation. So go ahead and do that. Go ahead and bold the heading, and then also in your palette we can lighten up the colors so they're not so bold in our face, because we're going to be emphasizing in this content right here. I'm going to zoom in actually even more so we can concentrate on what we're doing here. There we go. Now first of all, for pass fail, go ahead and take A column, okay, this is A, and make it a little bit smaller to fit. If you want to custom fit it, you can double click on B to double click, and double click C, double click D, and it automatically adjusts. Now let's go ahead and shade those in. So go up to borders and shading, and choose a light color that we can. So we've got pass and fail. Now, and you can I want you to choose your own colors. Don't just use my colors. Now let's set up our classes. Okay. For our classes, I'm just going to choose the core classes. So we got American Literature, Calculus, World History, Chemistry. So any 4 classes, it's up to you. Go ahead and put the titles in right here and bold them. Okay, and then try to put in your grades, like your estimated grade. So let's say you got 80% there. Let's say we got a 60% there. Now notice if I just put 60, it doesn't automatically do the percentage. And you don't want to type percentage every time because that's an added effort. So what you can do is highlight all the cells you want to have that percentage sign. Go to Format and then Cells, and then change the format. Instead of general, you can change that to sorry, not currency, but you would change it to percentage. And then we don't want 2 decimal places, so we would just hit OK. Okay, and now we would just type in 0.6, and now it's 60. Okay, in a similar way, there's a shortcut for that, and that's Control Shift and the percentage sign, so you can do that as well. Okay, so now we can type in our numbers. Actually, I wasn't good in chemistry. My best grade, yeah, I liked history. I'll give myself an A for that. Okay, so now we need to decide if we're going to pass or fail, and we're going to make an equation to have a result and show this. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and shade this again so it's a little bit easier to see. And so now when you do an equation for this, and I'm going to scroll up because we don't need that top part. And actually, we don't need this part right now, so I'm going to highlight this. And if you control click and hide, you can hide that, or you could use a shortcut. So now what is the passing? Okay, so as we're saying, if this grade, 88%, okay, if 88% is higher than this number, then you're going to pass. If it's not, or else, then it's a fail. Okay, and I entered in my numbers right here in different cells. So Excel has an equation here that you can use. So you can go to the f of x, or function, right there for function builder, and you can search for if, and then double click if, and then now we're going to make our equation. So for our equation, we're going to start with the value. Okay, now the value is going to be what number that you've entered that is going to be evaluating. And so this number will always be changing. It won't be the same number. So we're going to say if this number, and right now it says true, but it's not going to be true. It's going to be greater than or equal to, okay, this number, or percentage, 66, okay, then, so if this equation meets those contents, then what's going to happen? Then it's going to equal this, pass. And you can notice that it says pass in purple. If it doesn't meet it, then it's else, then we want it to say fail. Okay? So now notice that all of these are cell reference values. That means it references a certain cell on this board. If you wanted to, you could write like else fail, or instead of, if you don't want to put fail, you could put take it next year. Okay? You can do that. You could type in numbers. And if you don't want to put B6, you could have put 66%, and it will still work. Okay? But the reason why we don't put the numbers for 66% is, what if you made a mistake? You're like, oh, it wasn't 66%. It was actually, you needed a 70%. Then you'd have to go back into all your equations and change it. Okay? But instead, you could just change one number, and it automatically changes it for you because it's a cell reference. And I can explain that more as we go on. Okay? So I'm going to change that back to a cell reference, and I'm going to change this back to a cell reference. Okay, so we're saying if this grade is greater than or equal to this percentage, then it's going to equal pass, else fail. So we hit enter, and ta-da-da, you pass. Okay, and let's go ahead and center this, Command E on a Mac, and we'll also bold and italicize it. And that way we can see what we did. Now, you can go to the next equation. Oh, and by the way, to see this equation that you did, you should see a toolbar up here. You can hit Control A and you can edit. This is what the equation looks like. When I first learned Excel back in the day, we actually had to like type in these numbers, but now they have a nice little box here that you can, it helps you get it right. So that's the equation that we used. Okay, so we passed. Now instead of typing in the same equation for this, okay, we're gonna do a copy. Now if you look, you see this little box here, square. If you drag that down, it's gonna drag the same formula down one cell. Now notice it says fail. Okay, he did fail. Okay, but if we look at the equation, you'll notice it's wrong. Okay, so notice it says if F11, so sorry, E11, which is correct, equals B7, so B7, 0. Okay, so that's correct. But then it's going to be fail, which is correct. But then it says A8, and then see there's nothing in A8. So again, if I drag this all the way down into multiple columns, notice that now it's all messed up. Because now if I enter, notice that the equation is being copied down with the cell. So let me explain why or how equations copy down. So you see this cell reference? Actually, let me break it down for you. See, it says E10. If I copy this equation down, we no longer want E10, we want E11. Okay, so if we double click, notice that's E11. Okay, and then the next one's going to be E12 and E13. So that's what this is doing here too. We're referencing 66%, but as we copy it down, then it's referencing the next cell and the next cell, but we don't want this to copy down. We only want this number to be copied down in our equation. So what we'll want to do is add a called absolute cell reference. And what that is you add the dollar sign in front of the number and the letter, and basically that won't change. Okay, so that'll be permanent because we want that reference to stay the same. Okay, so now when we copy it down, okay, so notice now it works. And if we look at it, see E12, that's correct, and see these numbers stayed the same. Okay, the same thing works if we copy it over to the right. Okay, now instead of see how it's F11. Notice here when E10 to E11, if we copy it across, it's just going to go across instead of down for copying the equations. So that's a little bit about how the equations work for copying. So now that works. Okay. Now notice I failed calculus. Okay, because math was my hardest subject. So, but let's say later on I took it again and I got a better grade, or they made a mistake. So if you change this to 75 and enter, notice it says pass now. Okay, so that's we can easily change things for our equations. Now, remember I told you if this changes from 66%, what if now to pass you only need a 60%? Watch what's going to happen to my calculus grade. Whoa, I passed. So notice I didn't have to go into my equation and fix that. Okay, what if instead of pass you want to put good job? Whoa, I got good job. Okay, so notice how easy it is to change that. So that's a little bit about if then. So go ahead and just format it correctly and go ahead and unhide those columns that you hid.